So it's very often that I'll have a patient who is a type 2 diabetic who is under the assumption that their pancreas is no longer producing enough insulin and or is no longer producing insulin at all. And this is the reason why they are now taking medications to force the pancreas to create more insulin and or injecting exogenous insulin. In this video, I want to challenge that thinking, but I also want to find out what evidence were you given to substantiate the treatment that you're now taking, which is increasing the insulin. Stay tuned. What's going on, family? This is your brother Edward Williams, licensed physician assistant, founder and creator of Health by Any Means Necessary, and I want to welcome you to our channel where we talk about all things Black health improvement, insulin resistance, and fasting. So if you are new around here, go ahead, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and be sure to share this video with your family. All right, let's get into the talk. So let's start with talking about hormone replacement therapy. This is a type of treatment that for the most part people are familiar with once you get around the age of 55. And essentially when we look at something like hormone replacement therapy for men and women, we understand that as we age, certain hormones will start to decrease. In the woman it's going to be estrogen, and in the man is going to be testosterone, along with other hormones. But for those two hormone replacement therapies, those are the main focus: estrogen and testosterone. And so what happens is these patients will go and see a doctor who will do labs, draw their blood, and see where that hormone is for them. So if it's a female, they're going to have multiple values checked when it comes to their hormones, but the spotlight is going to be on estrogen. In the male, the spotlight is going to be on testosterone. The reason why the spotlight is on that hormone, estrogen or testosterone, is because this is the hormone that is going to be replaced. So my objective is not to talk about whether or not I agree with hormone replacement therapy in that sense. My objective is the line of thinking where we are going to replace a hormone in your body. Before we can replace that hormone, it makes sense that we check to see where your hormones are at, so that we can now understand just how much hormone we are going to administer to this person based on where their levels are at. That makes sense to me. That makes sense. Once again, we're not talking about whether or not I agree with it, but we are just talking about the line of thinking. Your hormones are here. We would like them to be right here. Therefore, we're going to administer this amount every so often to get you into that range. And then on top of that, we're going to have you come back on a monthly, quarterly, annually basis to make sure that your levels are remaining in a tight range that is going to be optimal for you. That all makes sense. And even when we look at other conditions that are not so much really hormone therapy, but it assists in the gland increasing the hormone, such as thyroid deficiency. So someone's hypothyroidism, someone's taking medications to help the thyroid gland create more of that hormone. Something like for kids who are having a delay in their growth, they're taking growth hormone to help with their growth. And the list goes on and on and on as far as hormone therapies or conditions that are being given medications to help out with the hormone. I hope we get that, we understand that part. My question to you now is, what is insulin? What is insulin? I'll go ahead and help you out. Insulin is a hormone. This is a fact, right? So let's rewind it all the way back to the very beginning of the video. So many patients, so many people who are type 2 diabetics are under the assumption that their pancreas is having difficulty producing insulin. You even have some patients, or a decent amount of patients, that are under the assumption that their pancreas is, for the most part, no longer producing insulin. Where did you get that information from? Of course, you most likely got the information from your practitioner and or someone else who is a diabetic, and they're pretty much telling you what your pancreas is not doing or doing. And let's think about this. Now, because you are told that your pancreas is no longer producing enough insulin, you are going to be given medications to force your pancreas to produce more insulin, or you're going to be given you're going to be given insulin, exogenous insulin, to be injected into your body because you are having issues with producing insulin and you need more insulin. Now, that's the thinking for a lot of people who are type 2 diabetics. Let's jump all the way back over here where we were talking about hormone replacement therapy. You know, the reason why you have to check these levels before giving someone estrogen or giving someone testosterone is because if you give the wrong amount, you could cause harm to that patient. In fact, giving even the quote-unquote proper amount brings on a great deal of risk. If we're talking about hormone replacement for either or, the male or the female, you're talking about an increase in blood clots. You're talking about an increase in hypertension and heart disease. So even with the hormone replacement, you still carry risk, even with the proper, quote-unquote proper range or amount of hormones being given based on your blood work. That patient is still at risk for other things such as heart disease, blood clots, and a stiffening of the arteries. They're still at risk. And that's with being within a certain range based on your levels. But what happens when you give that patient, when you just blindly give that patient hormone replacement without even looking at their labs and not even knowing their specific situation? What happens? You will now call that malpractice because, it makes sense. If you're going to replace testosterone, we need to know where the testosterone is at so that we can now adjust how much we're going to give them. It makes sense that if we are going to give a female estrogen, it only makes sense that we do blood work so that we can know how much estrogen we're going to prescribe to this patient. Those things make sense, and we understand the ramifications of giving too much. You're putting them at an even greater risk of those adverse events. We understand this. This only makes sense. Same thing with hypothyroidism. It only makes sense to get the labs so that we can see just how much we're going to prescribe them the levothyroxine to get them to where we want to go. It only makes sense. And we also understand that it would be considered malpractice to not check these levels before giving them these therapies, right? That makes sense. You're going to replace testosterone, you better check the testosterone. You're going to replace estrogen, you better check the estrogen, so on and so forth. Why? Because these are hormones. You don't play around with hormones, because playing around with hormones can accelerate heart disease, it can accelerate blood clots, and the list goes on and on and on. Let's jump back over here to type 2 diabetes. What proof, what evidence were you given that your pancreas was no longer producing insulin and or no longer producing a sufficient amount of insulin? What evidence were you given? I will tell you, it is extremely rare that I have a patient who is telling me this, who also has had the correct labs done to verify this. Now, I haven't had any patients that actually showed me the proper labs where we're like, all right, yeah, you definitely need it. None. Now, I've had an extremely small amount of patients who would show me the labs that they got their levels checked, and I'm like, we're both like, well, your insulin is fine. So we need to question that. So if we were to treat type 2 diabetes and the need for insulin the same way they treated hormone replacement therapy, in this situation, the proper thing to do, if we were to do it that way, would be to check your insulin levels. Think about it. Testosterone, estrogen, we check those levels. We need to see where it's at. Insulin, no levels being checked. Why are practitioners not checking insulin before prescribing you a medication that's going to increase insulin, or giving you a prescription where you're going to now inject insulin into your body? Why is that not being checked? You do know that insulin is a hormone, and insulin carries risk as well. The main one being stiffening of the arteries, which is not what you want. So I find it strange, extremely strange, that a hormone is being replaced without the proper due diligence or diagnostics or workup being done. If we were to look at it as hormone replacement therapy, before replacing hormone or before prescribing your medication that's going to force you to create more hormone, we would first see where your insulin levels are at. You would get a fasting insulin test done, and you would also get a C-peptide test done. These are the labs that will tell you just how much insulin is being produced. Also, you would also look at doing a 2-hour oral glucose tolerance test. These are the things that will tell you whether or not your insulin is producing a sufficient amount of insulin. But in most cases, I'm talking about over 85-90% of cases, patients are not having their insulin levels checked. And it's not their fault. That's not something they should be doing. It's on the practitioner. Insulin is a serious hormone, and you're just going to inject it willy-nilly, no labs, not going to see where it's at. So since no one has, and I mean no doctor or nurse practitioner or PA, I have not had anyone giving me a valid reason for why this is not being done. And so since I have not been given a valid reason, and maybe you know someone, or maybe you can give me a better reason, but since no one has provided me with a valid reason why you would not check the insulin levels before providing insulin, my thought or my theory is that people are not doing this because, well, the practitioners may not even have thought about this, because I would say that I've asked this question to close to 20 practitioners, roughly 15 doctors, 5 nurse practitioners and PAs. Over my 8-year span, I've asked this question to multiple people, and no one has given me a good answer. And for the most part, none of them have really even thought about that question. So I don't place this solely on the practitioners. This is a systemic thing, right? Because like I said, most practitioners haven't even thought about this. But my line of thinking behind this is that the reason it's not done is because if you were to check the insulin levels before writing a prescription that's going to increase the insulin or giving exogenous insulin, the reason why that's not being checked is because in almost every case, you're going to find that those patients, not only is the pancreas producing insulin, but it's producing a high amount of insulin. How do I know this? Well, one, I understand how type 2 diabetes works. I understand what insulin resistance is. But also, we also do the labs. So my patients, if they are working with me for diabetes reversal, we're going to check your insulin. Because for me, it only makes sense that we see where your insulin levels are at, because low key, you might be a type 1 diabetic thinking that you're a type 2. You might be a type 1.5 diabetic thinking you're a type 2. So I don't want to get in a situation where I'm giving you advice and recommendations as if you're a type 2, but you're really a type 1. So that's one reason. But two, this patient needs to just see, I need it to make sense to the patient while we're going to be doing the protocol we're doing. and why they don't need insulin the way they need it. They think they need it. And so they come in, they do a fasting insulin, they do C-peptide, and I haven't had one patient yet. I believe, that has come in and had little to no insulin. They've all had high insulin levels fasting. What does this mean? Not only do you have insulin, not only is your body producing insulin, but it's producing a high amount of insulin. Now, let's think about that. Let's think about how crazy that is. Not only do you have insulin, but you have an extremely high amount of insulin. Insulin is a burst hormone. At no point is it normal for you to have sustained high levels of insulin. And so when this happens, you have to understand that insulin has a job to do. One of its main jobs is to store nutrients. But when insulin is allowed to be sustained, it causes stiffening of the arteries. It also causes water retention. It also makes your body resistant to insulin. But it would now cause insulin resistance to the pituitary gland, the testes, and the ovaries. This is where you're going to get things such as PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome. This is where you're going to get things such as gynecomastia. And this is where the male will now exhibit characteristics and traits of the female. They will become effeminized on a chemical level. They will now develop what they call man boobs. Their testosterone is going to decrease. And then the inverse, when we're talking about for women, PCOS will now be similar to the masculinization of a female, where we're now talking about irregular menstrual cycles, hirsutism, where they're now growing hair under their chin, thick, stubbly hair under their chin. We're talking about the thickening of the vocal cords, which will deepen the voice. We're talking about a velvet line, dark line on the back of the neck. And the list goes on and on and on and on. This is what happens when insulin levels are allowed to be high and elevated for a long period of time. The list goes, when you start looking at what happens when insulin is activated for the majority of your day, trust me, this is not something you want. This is not something someone desires to have done to them. Also with high insulin levels, you're talking about the constant stiffening of the arteries. Arteries are designed to be elastic. They're designed to expand and then rebound and recoil. When this cannot happen, you're looking at increasing the chances of damage in those arteries. When damage starts to happen in those arteries, you will now have to increase the level of cholesterol going to the artery to repair it. Cholesterol is not evil. Cholesterol has a job to do. So I'm kind of going on a rant, but let me get back to what I'm saying is that it is my opinion that if you are not checking insulin levels, but you are now telling the patient that you are no longer making enough insulin, that your pancreas is burned out, therefore we need to now give you medications to increase insulin, or we need to now inject insulin. If you are convicting that patient, you're now telling this patient and giving them this diagnosis, you should have evidence, because this is a harsh conviction. This is a life sentence of insulin. What evidence were you provided before you were given this conviction? I'm talking to you, the patient, the type 2 diabetic. What evidence were you given? What evidence were you shown that your pancreas is no longer producing enough insulin before taking medications that will punch on your pancreas and force it to produce insulin, or injecting exogenous insulin into your body every single day? What evidence were you given to do this therapy for the rest of the remainder of your life? What evidence? Once again, 85-90% of diabetic patients who are doing these type of therapies were never giving any evidence whatsoever outside of their practitioners just saying, you don't have enough insulin, this is what you need to do. This is not a light conviction, because once again, Just like with hormone replacement therapy, it comes with risk. And because of those risks, we would not just prescribe or, give out the hormone without any proper guidance or understanding of where your levels are at, because we know the problems. You need to keep that same energy when it comes to type 2 diabetes. Once again, I believe the reason this is not being done from a systematic standpoint, not so much from a practitioner standpoint, because I tell you, once I asked these questions to the practitioners, a decent amount of them were like, that makes sense. Yeah, I should start looking into that. So they were at least open to it. But the reason why I believe this is not being done is because it's going to mess up money. Like, just come on. I mean, I know a lot of people still are in love with the Disney fairy tale idea of your healthcare system truly putting you first as far as it pertains to improving your health. But you got to understand that this is a business. All right. This is a business. And for the most part, you getting healthy and improving your health it's not really good for the bottom line. You being on medications and having follow-ups every 3 months and refilling your medications every 3 months and coming in for procedures and coming in for checkups, like, that's good money. This is recurring revenue. This is every 3 months. This is biannually. This is annually. This is something that is going to keep you coming in, and we also can project our future earnings, because we know that after 6 months to 9 months of doing a certain medication such as metformin or sulfonylurea, that we're going to have to increase the dose. And then we also know that with that comes the increase in other medications such as blood pressure medication, because you're taking a sulfonylurea or you're injecting insulin. I'm pretty sure your blood pressure is going to start to increase now because of the stiffening of the arteries and the lack of the ability for your arteries to expand and recoil the proper way, which is going to increase the blood pressure. You're injecting insulin, which is going to cause water retention and sodium retention. So your blood pressure is going to go up. Therefore, let's go ahead and prescribe you this medication for your blood pressure. And then what also happens, you're going to see the cholesterol start to go up, because once again, all of this insulin, and now you're going to be given a statin medication, which is going to cause muscle pain, which is going to give you another. So when we step back and take our emotions out of it and just look at it from a logical standpoint, or even from a business standpoint, you're going to see that you being sick and being dependent on medications and coming back in every 3 to 6 months and doing blood work and buying the lancets to prick your fingers and the finger stick and doing the little device, you got to understand how this is a good business model. I didn't say it was moral. I didn't say it was ethical, and I definitely don't agree with it. But from a business standpoint, you being dependent on them is a good business model. So when I look at why this would not be done, is because it would drastically decrease the revenue. Because if you're talking about checking the insulin levels, which is kind of the main theory behind, the sulfonylureas and the insulin injections, if you're talking about checking those levels to see where those levels are at, ideally, before you would give someone that, you would ideally want to see their fasting insulin levels being low. That would tell you that, okay, you would definitely benefit from medications that's going to force you to increase insulin, or you're going to benefit from just injecting insulin. That would support the theory, and then that would also support the treatment. However, the plan would be completely ruined if you did that for most type 2 diabetics, because you would find that not only is their pancreas producing insulin, but it's producing a lot of insulin. And so it wouldn't make sense to go to the next step of injecting insulin or taking medications to increase insulin. It would completely ruin the plan. It would completely ruin it. You see, with hormone replacement therapy, like with estrogen and testosterone, guess what? In most of those cases, those patients actually have low levels of estrogen. Those patients mostly have low levels of testosterone, especially when we're talking about the foods that we're eating and the lifestyle that we're living, and also being insulin resistant, which is going to decrease both of those levels. You can almost roll a dice and guarantee a 50-year-old, 55-year-old is going to have a low level, and you're going to feel smart when you get to say, all right, the levels are low. It only makes sense, give you this therapy. Even when we're talking about hypothyroidism, the levels are low or high. So it only makes sense to give them this medication. You see, the diagnostic actually supports the treatment, which is the way medicine should be done. However, if you kept that same energy and did diagnostics tests such as fasting insulin and C-peptide to see where the insulin is at, that energy, that correlation, that supportive evidence is not going to be there. It's not going to be there. 85 to 95% of the time, it's not going to be there. You're going to see that the patient has more than enough insulin. Me giving you insulin is not going to help you out. We need to find out why you're not responding to the insulin. And that's where the key lies. Why are you not responding to the insulin? So, my point in all of this is to say that I want you, the individual, to question this mindset, this central thinking that you have that your pancreas is having a hard time producing enough insulin. I want you to question that. I want you to challenge that. And I want you to also go back and watch the videos that I've made on insulin resistance. The main one being Insulin Resistance Explained. Make sure you check this video out because it's going to go through and explain what insulin resistance is. And you're going to most likely see that that is the problem. And you're also going to see how you got to that place in life. And you're also going to be given information on what you need to do to reverse it. All right. Very important video. Make sure you watch it. So let's wrap up the video. That's pretty much all I want to talk about. I want to challenge that idea, challenge that thinking. And now it's on you to take action. You know, you can either choose to pretend that you didn't watch this video and not really have these thoughts for yourself, or you can digest the information I just said, rewind the video, think about it, and then take accountability for your health and your life. Because once again, we have people that are watching us, our children, our nieces, nephews, you know, the community at large is watching us. And if we don't start pushing back against this mindset, these ideas on an individual level, the community level will never start to happen as far as the pushback goes and as far as the improvement goes. All right. So if you want to learn more about insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, prevention and reversal, be sure to check out my new book called Done with Diabetes. I have it right here. Done with Diabetes. 5 simple strategies to reverse diabetes, get off medications, avoid complications. The link for that is in the description. Make sure you check that book out. It comes with a free audiobook and also comes with a free bonus pack, and several videos come along with it as well. All right, make sure you check the book out. Trust me, it's life-changing. Now, if you want to take the next step and actually work with me step by step to prevent diabetes and reverse diabetes, make sure you check out my program called Done with Diabetes 6-Point Action Plan. This is a step-by-step do-it-yourself program where I'm going to walk you through what you need to be doing on a daily basis to reverse your type 2 diabetes. This is a step-by-step program. It's very, very good. It comes with a workbook. This is the workbook. In this workbook, you're going to have videos that go along with the pages. And so, you know, it's not just me making recommendations and telling you what to do. I'm giving you a way to actually track what you're doing. And you're going to actually be able to see without a shadow of a doubt if what you're doing is working or if it's not working. And I'll show you how to track it. So in this book, we have these trackers. We also have the daily trackers. We have the monthly trackers. But the program comes with multiple videos of me walking you through step by step on what you need to be doing. But also with that, I explain why these things are going to work for you. The advice and recommendation that I'm giving, well, this is not medical advice, but the things that I'm putting in this program are exactly the same as the protocols I'm giving to my clients, my patients, where I've helped hundreds of people prevent and or reverse type 2 diabetes, get off medications, and avoid the complications. So this program, I highly recommend. If you're going to get the program, make sure you get the Done with Diabetes book as well. Now, if you don't want to do either of those and you just want to indulge in more free content, then also check out my free resource called the Diabetic Toolkit. The Diabetic Toolkit is a great free resource. This can definitely be your step one as far as just understanding and getting out of the matrix, because believing that type 2 diabetes is non-reversible and is, not preventable, you're in a matrix. You're in a complete matrix. And the diabetic resource, the Diabetic Toolkit, is a great first step to get you out of that matrix and to help you see the truth. And then once you see the truth, it's up to you on, I guess, which pill you're going to take for that matrix, the blue pill or the red pill. You'll have to make that decision. The blue pill, it does feel very comfortable. It will put you back to sleep. It'll give you a nice warm blanket. It'll rock you to sleep, sing you songs. But winter is coming. Winter will still be coming regardless of what the blue pill is telling you. However, the red pill is going to be like someone splashing cold ice water on you while you're sleeping. It's going to get you up out of bed. It's going to wake you up. It's going to shake you to the actual truth of what's going on. But even though all that's going to take place, the rewards are extremely high, because you will now have the true health that you always wanted. You will optimize your health, which will allow you to do hundreds and thousands of other things that you always wanted to do in life. But you can't do a lot of those things without the health. All right, that's enough. So, Diabetic Toolkit, link in the description. Done with diabetes, link in the description. And the 6-point action plan down in the description. Highly recommend you all check that out. All right, everybody. So let me know what you think about the video. Let me know what you think about the topic. Post your comments below. And if you are someone who's actually had their insulin levels checked, I would love to hear about it. Just type it below in the comments, because like I said, for the most part, it's rare that happens. So that's all, family. I appreciate you all watching the video. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. Be sure to share this video with your family. Like the video. And remember, as I always say, this is our community, our responsibility. We have what it takes. We just got to put in the work. All right, family. Love y'all. Peace.